Hey everybody, Reefgrrl here. So lately I've seen a lot of mentions of nano bubble scrubbing in aquariums, and I thought if it has benefits for SPS corals, it might be something I'd like to look into and see whether it could help my aquarium, because there are a couple corals that are having trouble. So of course I'm always up for something new, and it'll be a challenge to see what I can find around the house and in my various shoe boxes of stuff. And see whether I can come up with something. So Fish of Hex and MICAH WHALEN both have had videos about nano bubble scrubbing in their tanks. And so I've watched those and I've done a bit of reading, and I think I'm just about ready to give this a try. So to get ready to go, I've got my little pump stand, which is basically an upside down wastebasket from the dollar store, only temporary, and I've got it high enough to be above the level of water in the sump because we don't want the siphon effect. I've also got one of these extra air stones that I bought to use on the Nano reef glass skimmer, and I've attached some tubing to it to put that onto the end of the air pump, and I'm going to use these little suction cups with hose holders and mount it on the side wall of my return chamber and orient it so that the bubbles can be drawn into the pump. Okay, you can kind of see the air stone right down there. My finger's pointing to it. I have it fastened onto the side wall with a suction cup and an air holder, or a hose holder. And there's my little pump stand with the rubber underneath. I took it off of the reef glass skimmer just temporarily while I try this out because I can't stand it. I gotta try it now. And we're gonna plug it in and see what happens. I have not seen this yet. It's gonna be new to me too. Okay, so we're seeing air bubbles in the return. Let's see if we start seeing air bubbles come out of the upper part. Okay, so lots of bubbles here, but no bubbles in the tank above yet. It just doesn't seem to be happening. I read a couple of articles, and perhaps no bubbles up top has something to do with the strength of the pump. Hard to say, or maybe it's because the air stone is floating and I have to refasten it. It seems like it might be pretty hard to keep it in place with just this little tiny suction cup. So there are bubbles up here, but not the fog of bubbles that there should be according to what I've seen in videos and what I've read. And it's hard to say. Perhaps the air stone just isn't in a very good position in the sump down below. So I'm gonna have to think about this for a little bit. So in anticipation of trying this again, I cleaned the skimmer and changed the overflow pad because don't you know there's supposed to be tons of gunk that comes out when you do this right. And I do have bubbles now, and it's largely because I ended up wedging the air stone under the heater, which you can't really see because of all the bubbles, but you can kind of, maybe a tiny bit, you can see it there. It's basically stuck under the heater, and I'm really not sure that's a good idea as a permanent solution. And I'm still not sure the bubbles are small enough or there are enough of them to really be doing what it's supposed to be doing. So somehow I'm gonna have to focus that stream of bubbles. Okay, so after trying the bubble thing last night with the air stone just wedged into various places in my return, I really was 100% sure I was not doing it right. So I went to my magic shoebox, one of many, of spare plumbing parts that every aquarist has in their basement, I'm sure, or maybe it's just me. And I found these two pieces, which are from gravel vacs that I bought to help clean up when I had the crash in the 29. So I was trying to think of a way to get the air that comes out of here to stay concentrated and focused so it could feed into the return. And I'm hoping this is going to work. I have not tried it yet. So we're going to do this. let me see, how did I have this again? Like that. So that's going to go in there. This is the smaller of the two. Luckily, I have lots of equipment I've used and then stashed away. I'm going to put the air stone in there and then feed this. So, okay. That's not working the way I expected. Fail. I had it the other way. Bear with me. Okay, so we're going to feed the hose this way. So the air stone is now in the smaller one. And then simply place the larger one over top, and it slides right in. My thinking was if I put the air stone inside some type of a reducer, I would get more into, like, directed at these big indentations here to allow all the bubbles to go streaming up to the surface just like they did last night when I tried. Further reduce the bubble flow. Now on this one, which is slightly larger, and as luck would have it, it fits right over top. Air will come out here, all the bubbles, in this little chamber. Okay, this is a theory. I'm hoping it'll work because the last two theories I tried with this thing didn't work. I also have some weights that I'm going to put on the hose here, being trapped inside this chamber and only a tiny outflow. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some major floating. Okay, so I have the Frankenstein airstone holder under some water in the sink. Probably a better place to try it for the first time than the aquarium itself. And you can see it's floating. I made this little saddle with the weights, but I don't know. We'll see. So I'm going to turn it on now. Here comes the air pump. It's turning the little bubbles into big bubbles, so this is not going to work. The bubbles are getting trapped in there and they're not able to be tiny. So here's the next attempt at figuring this out. This is a suction cup with a kind of a clampy thing that's used to hold filter hoses on the outside of an aquarium. And you can see I've got the block on an angle because my thought is if this is the bottom of the aquarium and if I can get that block at the bottom of the aquarium right in front of the pump intake, the return pump intake, maybe more of the bubbles will go through the pump and up into the tank. So that's the latest theory and I'm going to try it now. So let me tell you what I learned about my pump just now. That little round area there, if you can see it, is not the intake. Yeah, that's the adjustment. So you can see I've positioned the air stone right beside this little grate. Can't on the other side because the heater's there. That little grate is apparently where the water gets pulled in. So I used the black suction cup underneath and it is holding on there so well that when I tried to move it, I had a heck of a time getting it off. So that's good. I've got the hose in one of these little holders on the glass. I hope it stays there just so that it's not flopping around. And I also have to be really careful not to disturb the sensor for the ATO because of course I don't want that going all wacky. Good bubbles in the return chamber there. So that's promising. Oh, and look! We do have some bubbles coming out in the tank. Have to move closer so you can... I don't know whether these are going to come on camera or not, or be visible. Yeah, there's bubbles. I'm not convinced they're micro enough. But there are more of them than there was before. And yeah, so this was just a test. So what I'm going to do is turn it off now. And last night I ran it from 10 until about midnight. That's the suggestion, is run it for a couple hours and then another hour and another hour. Just incrementally increase the amount of time. When using microbubbles, here's something to be aware of. If you dose for alkalinity via your ATO, microbubbles does increase the evaporation out of your system, because of course it's all that surface agitation. And the last time I checked my alk before I started the microbubbles, it was at 140. Today it's at 164, and that's after 4 days of using the microbubbles. I noticed I was going through a lot of top-off fresh water, and I thought I better check the alk. And there you go, it's 9.184, and that's up from 8 point something. I don't have the spreadsheet open. I'll put it in the title down below. This is a concern, and I'm not sure the benefits of microbubbles are going to outweigh this, because it means I'm going to have to fiddle around with the alkalinity dosing again just when I had got it to where I want it, which is in the low 8s. So I discontinued with the microbubbles as of last night when I suspected this might be an issue, and I'm going to have to figure out what to do. I don't know whether alternate day use of microbubbles might also be beneficial. I have no idea. Or maybe it's just one of those things that only works in certain types of systems. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. And so here we are 4 days later, and the alkalinity has dropped to 149 or 8.344. And this is in a much better range for me, for my comfort level. I stopped dosing any reef carbonate in the ATO water and just went with straight RODI water, and it's taken this 4 days for the alkalinity to drop. So I know my tank consumes a considerable amount of alkalinity. I'm not sure I want to mess around with trying to maintain the levels and use the nano bubble scrubbing. I don't know that it will have benefits. I probably haven't tried it for a long enough period to see any value, but I think I'm a little worried about the risk of messing around with the alkalinity. So the jury's still out. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.